Today's video is brought to you by War Thunder. To be a game developer these days means that you gotta put yourself in front of millions of people who can either respect and admire all the work you put into your game, or they can just hate your guts because you didn't add their favorite characters into the roster. So we're gonna go over 5 of the most loved indie developers that have won the hearts of the public, and we're gonna compare them to some of the most disliked devs in the industry. Starting off with Danny. Danny was a game dev YouTuber that was getting over 10 million views in almost every video that he uploaded, and he was so popular that even Mr. Beast wanted to collaborate with him. You know, before all the Mr. Beast drama came to light. But every game that Danny released was just going absolutely viral on Twitch, and one of my favorite games of all time is this little janky survival game that he made called Muck. And he managed to grow a pretty dedicated fan base because his viewers just loved the way Danny presented himself on camera. Like, he made game development, which is usually a very boring thing to do, you know, fun with all the memes and all the edits in his videos. But things took a pretty dark turn for Danny because while working on his dream game Carlson, which was a mix of first-person shooter, parkour, and milk cartons, his fans got extremely parasocial with the game's development process. And it got to the point that they were harassing Danny on every single social media platform, asking him, "Where's Carlson? When is it coming out? Why are you posting less updates?" And all that harassment just quickly escalated to people sending actual threats for not releasing Carlson sooner. Why do people think this is a good idea? Why do they think this is going to speed up the process? I don't know. But the amount of pressure that Danny was under from all of this started causing him to post less and less videos until he eventually just went radio silent on social media to work on the projects in peace, and he hasn't uploaded in over 2 years. And now everybody's coming out asking the same question, where's Danny? But no one really gets the chance to sit down and ask the real question, which is, how's Danny? Which the same unfortunately can't be said about this next game developer who went from winning multiple game awards to being driven out of the spotlight forever. You see, Phil Fish was the creator of the award-winning title called Fez, which was a cozy puzzle platformer where your 2D character discovers that he lives in a 3D world. The soundtrack on this game is just absolutely beautiful, and overall it's a very cute experience. So Phil quickly gained popularity on the indie gaming scene because of how innovative his idea was that went on to sell millions of copies when it first released, and it basically just put him on top of the world. Phil was so recognized that he actually started in a film production called Indie Game the Movie, and basically became the face of indie developers who were dreaming of making it big in the industry. But Phil Fish was known for having a sort of unfiltered voice in social media and not knowing how to handle criticism too well. And that unfortunately just led him to having a bad reputation online as someone who often came out as entitled or arrogant because of his success. And it would all get worse when this clip of him surfaced online that got so much backlash that it led Phil to eventually just cancel his work on Fez 2, the sequel, and just quit game development forever. So it all happened during the 2013 Game Developers Conference where a Japanese game dev came up to the mic and asked him a pretty simple question. Are there any modern Japanese games that inspired you?
They suck. I'm sorry, like, you guys need to get with the times, make better interfaces and like update your technology. We're totally kicking your ass. Back then you guys were the king of the world, but your time has passed.
Look at his face. Look at what you did, Phil.
Phil Fish, instead of just having like a normal answer, just like any other human would, he gave a catastrophic response that turned him into public enemy number 1 inside the indie dev community. But you know what's even more catastrophic than that? The fact that some people don't know about War Thunder, so let me tell you about today's sponsor. War Thunder is the most comprehensive vehicle combat game ever made, with over 2,500 tanks, planes, helicopters, and ships. Join the worldwide community of over 70 million players in epic PvP battles. Every vehicle is incredibly detailed and customizable down to the individual components, and it's available now for free on PC, PlayStation, and Xbox. You're gonna love the intense combat of War Thunder with realistic graphics and authentic sound effects that are gonna give you next level immersion. The vehicle choices range from old-timey armored cars of the 1920s all the way to the state-of-the-art war machines that we have today. And you don't even need expensive hardware to drive these machines, all you need is your mouse or keyboard or your controller. My favorite part is the impressive X-ray view where if your vehicle or an enemy is damaged, War Thunder shows you exactly how it happened, where the shell hit, and what components were affected. And the best part about it all is that I've used my link in the video description or pinned comment. New and returning players that haven't played in 6 months will also receive a massive bonus pack that includes multiple premium vehicles, the exclusive vehicle decorator Eagle of Valor, 100,000 Silver Lions, 7 days of premium account, and much more. But this offer is only available for a limited time, so don't forget to claim it now. So another developer with a spotless reputation on this list is the creator of one of the most beloved indie games of all time that's managed to sell over 30 million copies to this day, Stardew Valley. Eric Barone, who goes online by the name of Concerned Ape, has always had a humble demeanor to him. Stardew Valley was his passion project after all that he worked on single-handedly for over 4 years. He made all the sprites in the game, composed the in-game music, and did most of the coding too. But he always struggled with being happy with his creation. Concerned Ape never thought the game was good enough to be released to the public, and every time he was developing, he would just keep adding features and then removing them, and he kept reworking the game's art over and over again. But when he finally decided to go ahead and publish Stardew Valley on Steam, he realized that people were just absolutely in love with the game. And despite the massive success that Concerned Ape has received over the years, he's always come off as being player-centric and being very engaged with the community. He's made multiple statements saying that he'll never charge money for any DLC or updates following the game's release, and he's been consistently adding new content to Stardew Valley over the years. Recently, he's been working on a new game called Haunted Chocolatier, and his fanbase is super excited about it. But he's just one of those developers that's just really nice, down to earth, and people just love how genuine he is on social media. Which is something that unfortunately you just can't say about this next game developer, who's infamously known as one of the most controversial game devs of all time, Yandere Dev. Now, Yandere Dev is the mastermind behind Yandere Simulator, which is a stealth game where you play as a girl who stalks a boy that she's in love with, and your main objective is to just eliminate every other girl who also has a crush on him too. Now, Yandere Dev started working on this game all the way back in 2014, and to this day, an entire decade later, the game is still in a sandbox state. It's still very far from finished, and unfortunately that's led to a lot of fans who were originally very excited about the game feeling a little frustrated about it. It's led to some people accusing Yandere Dev of caring more about maintaining his Patreon income by keeping the game in development indefinitely versus actually wanting to finish the game, while some other people are just outright saying that he's just a bad game developer because of how horribly optimized the game is, and that's why it's taking so long. The game is apparently also just built entirely on spaghetti code. But the biggest controversy surrounding Yandere Dev that have blacklisted him from a lot of the community is the accusations of the alleged inappropriate behavior with certain young individuals and being hostile towards people who criticize his work online. So that's led to a lot of his supporters just leaving the community over the years, and it's left a lot of the toxic people still in the community just actively praying for his downfall. So all this toxicity, all the negativity, and all the allegations has unfortunately just left the Yandere Dev community in absolute shambles, and his reputation is just absolutely destroyed, which is something that I don't think he'll ever be able to come back from. But if you want to hear about a developer who actually made a massive comeback, then we have to talk about Sean Murray at Hello Games. Because Sean became the most controversial game developer back in 2016 after the massive disappointment that was No Man's Sky, that was supposed to redefine space exploration in video games with its infinite universe and like the procedurally generated worlds, but ended up being a massive disappointment that was just filled with broken promises, a horribly optimized game, and a bunch of missing features. Like, it was the most infamous game launch of all time. Despite the fact that it did sell over 1.1 million copies during the first week of its release, No Man's Sky was in such a broken state when it first came out that it just completely ruined Hello Games' reputation as an indie game developer, and Sean Murray, being the face of the company, is the one that took all the heat for it. However, his redemption arc came from the fact that he wasn't ready to give up on No Man's Sky just yet. He wasn't ready to just abandon it, take the money and run. And through years of hard work, consistent free updates, and transparency towards the community, Sean Murray and Hello Games managed to, slowly over time, win back the goodwill of the community. No Man's Sky in this present day is way more than what they originally promised, and because of all that effort and the fact that Hello Games and Sean Murray were able to be humble about, admitting to their mistakes and working to fix them, people now have a huge respect for Sean Murray and all the work that he puts in, and every time he talks about his projects, you can always see how passionate and enthusiastic he is towards them, which is an aspect that people just love to see, to be honest. And now for a game developer that was once celebrated by basically everybody at one point, but unfortunately went through a few waves of cancellation after some not-so-savory tweets surfaced. We have to talk about Marcus Persson, aka Notch, the creator of the best-selling game of all time, Minecraft. Now, during the early days of Minecraft, Notch was very active with the community. He was always open to feedback from the players, and that built a pretty strong connection between himself and the fanbase. He was also praised for making the one game that was part of so many people's childhoods at one point and had such a huge impact on the modern gaming industry. He was basically loved by everybody in the community for so many different reasons, until he started making some pretty controversial statements on social media all the way back in 2017. Like, for example, he proposed the idea of a heterosexual pride holiday and wrote that people who were against the idea deserved to be shot. So some of his statements were actually just pretty out there for a developer of a game that was mainly targeted towards children, and tweeted a couple of things that would upset a very large group of people if they were to be tweeted out today. Overall, he might have made the best-selling game of all time, but clearly stopped caring about his social appearance and filtering his words after he sold the game to Microsoft for billions of dollars. And it got so bad to a point that Microsoft even refused to invite Notch to the 10-year anniversary celebration of the game, and they've even come out with statements saying that Notch's views and his ideals, they don't reflect Microsoft's or Mojang's. So I think it's pretty clear that at this point he's just lost the title of most loved game developer, and that title right now actually just belongs to Toby Fox, who created the pop culture phenomenon Undertale in 2015. 2015. So Toby Fox is known for having a near perfect reputation online for his approachable demeanor on social media, the way he interacts with his fans not only with his posts but also by putting Easter eggs in his game, and all the contributions and charity events that he's taken a part of throughout the years. Overall, Toby Fox is just seen as a positive light in the indie gaming community and is known for being supportive of his fans making fan renditions of his work, and not just with fan art, but he even gave other developers the green light when they wanted to create a fan project based off his original work, which then they made a game called Undertale Yellow. So it's no surprise that Toby Fox gets so much love from the community because of all the good deeds that he does. And Toby Fox is also a sort of role model for aspiring game developers, because when he first started working on Undertale, he was still relatively new to the whole game development process. Like, he had previous experience working with ROM hacks in the past, but for the most part he was just learning about making games while making a game. And he even composed the entire soundtrack for Undertale. But in the end, all that hard work and effort paid off, because Undertale went on to sell millions of copies when it released, and it was praised by basically everybody for its unique mechanics and storytelling. Which is something we can't really say about Keiji Inafune, who had a complete disaster of a Kickstarter drama, not just for one game, but for two. So Keiji was once recognized and celebrated in the gaming industry because he's the co-creator of Mega Man, one of my favorite series of all time, but after Capcom kept cancelling and delaying Mega Man games throughout the years, Keiji decided he was going to leave Capcom to go work on his own company called Concept, where he was going to work on the spiritual successor of Mega Man called Mighty No. 9. The Kickstarter campaign for Mighty No. 9 was a huge success. They managed to raise over $4 million from backers who just love the Mega Man series, but that would unfortunately turn out to be a nightmare for everybody involved because the game ended up being delayed multiple times throughout the years. When it finally did release, it failed to live up to the promise of being the next Mega Man because of how bland the gameplay was, and a lot of the goals that were hit during the Kickstarter campaign were either poorly implemented or just not featured at all. So unfortunately, it left a lot of people who were originally very supportive of Keiji feeling betrayed. And on top of all of that drama, Keiji also decided to start another crowdfunding campaign for a Mega Man Legends type game called Red Ash to sort of like expand the multimedia franchise for Mighty No. 9, but he decided to do that before Mighty No. 9 had even released. So a lot of people were raising concerns as to why Keiji wanted more money to work on a separate game when he hadn't finished the original game he promised to make first, and overall it was just poor mismanagement of crowdfunding funds and just poor communication all around the board, alongside a bunch of disappointing releases that left a permanent stain on Keiji Inafune's reputation as a game developer that was once celebrated, for being the co-creator of Mega Man. That's a big deal. Okay, so let's shift into talking about a studio that's actually universally loved instead of just one specific person, because that's the case of Landfall Games. Now, Landfall Games is a Swedish indie studio that's mostly known for creating totally accurate battle simulator, but they're actually very celebrated by the community because they're known for making some really awesome games that are usually very affordable and have tons of replay value. Heck, one thing I love about Landfall Games is that every single April Fool's Day, they always release a game, and for that day only, it's free to play for anybody to pick up. And it's not just like some minimum effort slop game that they managed to whip up. No, it's just actually something good. Like this year they released Content Warning, which is a beautiful game that every single person on Twitch was playing it on day of release. It's actually really fun. And it's not like they're always trying to chase trends by making games based off what's currently popular in the moment. So while some of the games that they make do come off as being very niche, they're also filled with genuine passion for making games, and that's why people love them so much. And overall, Landfall Games is just one of those very few studios that actually has a good reputation with the community because of how transparent and open they are about what they're trying to make, and they're always posting update videos on TikTok about the latest thing that they're working on, and they just aren't outright afraid to ask for opinions and tips from the community themselves. Which is actually the opposite of what we can say about Digital Homicide Studios, that by far has the reputation for worst indie game dev company out there, because they've been around since 2014, and they quickly developed a bad reputation on Steam for coming out with a large amount of games that were universally just seen as low quality asset flips that were a lot of the times either just poorly made or just outright broken. It looked like they put the absolute bare minimum when it came to making games, and they just wanted to put something on the Steam page and kind of just hope and pray it would sell. So obviously they weren't making any dedicated fans by using this marketing strategy, this sort of business practice, and when your priority is more about making money using low effort games instead of making good quality titles, you're not really going to gain a following. And on top of that, they were also known for lashing out against people who criticize their games and being extremely hostile towards the community instead of just taking constructive feedback, which made matters even worse for them. But the final nail in the coffin, and one of the biggest reasons why Digital Homicide Studios was seen in such a horrible light was because of how far they went to actually try to deal with the criticism. Because they weren't just making some terrible takes on social media like other game developers, they would go as far as filing lawsuits against anybody who spoke negatively about their games. And they also tried suing 100 anonymous Steam users for $18 million for posting negative reviews on their games, which anybody who saw this from an outside perspective could just easily see that they're just trying to bully and silence the opposition by trying to force them to not speak up about their games. Like, things got so bad at one point that Valve themselves had to step in and remove the entire Digital Homicide games catalog from their platform, effectively just cutting off the studio from being able to monetize off of their shovelware games on Steam. And eventually Valve came out with a statement saying that they were no longer doing business with Digital Homicide Studios for being hostile towards Steam customers and failing to provide a safe environment for the players. And that effectively destroyed the business, leaving them with the title of worst game developers of all time, with no chances of ever being able to make a comeback. Shout out to War Thunder again for sponsoring today's video. Don't forget to play for free on PC, PlayStation, or Xbox now using the link in the pinned comment or video description, and that new and returning players that haven't played for 6 months can receive a massive bonus pack including premium vehicles, in-game currency, and a lot more.